What's up, everybody? It's another episode of House Rules. It's game week here in Lincoln. We'll talk Michigan State coming up. We'll talk about bye week recruiting. Andy Staples, Ari Wasserman will visit us, talk about college football, barbecue, and everything else in between. And finally, in office hours with the one, the only Husker, Deshawn Singleton. This is House Rules. Welcome back to House Rules. Now, before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. House Rules.
House Rules, we're back. You know what's back? Husker football is back after a bye. What did you do?
Well, we worked during the week. We got better Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Thursday right after basically halfway through practice. Headed over to the airport, got on the Husker jet, and started recruiting till Saturday morning.
The Husker jet. I need to know more about the Husker jet and what it's like to be on the recruiting trail.
Well, it's not like it's like a bougie, like, hey, I want to travel in style. I mean, you only get so many days and you want to see as many guys as possible. So, like, we left here. We went to Pierre, South Dakota to see a young man. Made sure we stopped in there. Actually, shot the McAfee show from the FBO there, got on the plane, flew to Fort Worth, went and saw a high school game Thursday night. Friday morning, got up, went and saw a young man there in greater Fort Worth area. Flew to Chicago, went and saw one young man. Flew to the other side of Chicago, saw another young man, then went to the game, and then wrapped it all up Saturday morning, got back home, and had a chance to at least watch some of the great college football games that were going on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, there were. That's why I was texting you. I was like, how about these games? But when you go, so you saw 3 games total?
2 games, and then one was just going into the school and just evaluating the player in the school. And
now you can only visit schools, right? You can't go to people's houses.
Yeah, not till really January. Can we go into someone's home?
First of all, let's look at the game itself, because when you head to a high school game, it's a huge deal, right? It's like whoosh, Matt Rhule's here, like it's like a big deal. The crowd's whispering it, like who's here? The Husker jet is in town. It's a big thing. How do you deal with all that?
Well, I mean, obviously we're there to represent Nebraska, and we want that brand to be loud and exciting. We want the guys talking about it a lot. So we showed up. Keith Williams and I went on the road together, and once we get to the game, man, we try to go out. We try to watch. There's usually a player or two that we're there to see, and there's always a couple other players that we want to make sure we look at. So you're there to make sure everybody knows, like, hey, this player is important to me. That's why we're here. But at the same time, it's nothing like seeing someone play live. Seeing them, how they are on the sidelines, how they are with their teammates, how they are with adversity, what's their body language like. So it's a great evaluation tool, but it's also, it's part of the recruiting process is making sure that, myself and our coaches, that we're out and we're present and we're seen.
When you go out and you visit these schools, right, and you see these young men, what are you expecting in the kind of the interview? I mean, obviously, if you're going to sit with them, they're going to know who you are, they're going to, through their coaches, the whole thing. What are you looking at?
I think when I talk to any player, when I'm allowed, there's different rules about when you can talk, when you can't. So I think part of going in the schools too is, see the coach, see the guidance counselor, see the principal, see the people that, interact with that student athlete. And I'm like, hey, what do they think? They know it way better than we do. I think, when you have a chance to talk with a student athlete, you just want to know what's their mindset like? What are their priorities like? Is it a fit? We do things a certain way. They have to want that. They have to want to make sure that they're going to come and actually get an education. They have to want to, love football and want to be great at football and understand that we're going to coach 24/7. We're going to work. We're going to grind. And then I think finding out what their questions are. You know what I mean? Like, hey, mom, dad, mentor, whomever's in their life, right? The coach or the young man himself. Like, hey, what's important to you? What questions do you have for us? And I think, when you take the time to listen, when you take the time to really figure out what's important, then you can answer those questions and see if it's a fit. You don't want to trick people into coming to your place because then they're just going to leave, right? You want to have people come who are supposed to be there.
I've always wanted to be like this amateur scout, right? I love it. When you could see, when you love sports, you love talent. It's an art of movement, right? And what's interesting is looking at a player and then projecting what he'll grow into, right? And, what they're going to be looked at once they're taught and they're eating properly and training the correct way. That's got to be a blast.
Yeah, so if you think about it, like a lot of kids get their offers, after their junior year, going into their junior year, and you're basically sometimes watching someone at the age of 16, maybe 15, and say, what are they going to be like when they're 22? So there's way more projection to the high school stuff. If you're in the NFL, you kind of, there's a transition from college. If you're looking at a free agent, you're kind of hiring him to do what he does. The portal's a little bit like that. The portal's a little bit more about production, whereas I think recruiting is a little bit more about high-end talent, potential. But for someone to achieve their potential, they really have to have a mindset of grinding, of growth, they have to be a gritty guy. And so I think you want to find all that out. But yeah, I love looking at people and saying like, hey, I see what they can be. I see what he's going to be in 3, 4, 5 years. And it's a fun process. Some guys have a great eye for it. Other guys are just great coaches. They can't evaluate as well. They're great coaches. And now what we've done in Nebraska is we're building out a personnel department. So we really have, people who that's what they do full time, and allows the coaches to coach. And then when it's time, they join in as well.
It's so interesting because the college football is now mimicking the NFL, right? So you need to have these personnel departments, and you need to be doing all that stuff. You can't live on the Husker jet.
It's funny. I remember when the portal first opened. I remember some people bringing up having a portal department, almost like a pro scouting department. I remember I was like, come on, what are you talking about? I'll never do that. Now it's, the software, the stuff that's out there, ratings on every player in the country, because you never know who's going to be a free agent. You never know who's going to go into the portal. And so the ability to recognize talent and I think one of the biggest things, though, is it's not just talent. It's talent that fits you and what you're going to do. Joe Brady, I remember when Joe came to work for us in Carolina, he would always talk about, he'd worked for Sean Payton. He would always talk about what's the vision for the player. Like, I see his talent. I see what his high end could be, but also what's the vision? Like, how are we going to use this player? And I think that helps you when you're talking to a player and you're like, listen, this is how we're going to use you. This is the vision we have for you. And, if you're a good player with a lot of talent and you go someplace where the vision doesn't fit you, you're not going to be real successful. So I think being able to articulate that for a player is helpful for them and helpful for us.
You brought up Joe Brady. So imagine the NFL and Daniel Jones. Think about you're the Giants, and Daniel Jones, according to the fan base, was all the issues that were hurting the Giants. Now he goes to Indianapolis, and he looks great. He almost won yesterday. The story of the NFL, those kinds of players who leave, and it's like that in the portal in college football. How do you as a coach reconcile that?
I've had that on both ends, right? I've had players that have come to play for us that have played their best football. And that's really one of your goals as a coach is, I always say, I went in college, I want the players to say their life is better because they came here. And if, as a football player, pro or college, I want them to say they played their best football for us. We've also had some players play their best football for us and leave and go in the portal and go to other places. And, when they have success, I take pride in the fact hey, we developed him.
Yeah.
I've also had players who played for me and it wasn't great, and they went somewhere else and they had success. And, I'm happy for them. It can be a little convicting. It can be a little disappointing. Hey, why weren't we able to get this out? But every team runs a certain offense. Every team runs a certain defense. Every team has a certain culture. Every team has a certain way of doing things. And, sometimes either a player isn't a fit. Sometimes a guy just needs a fresh start, right? Like, there comes a time where, just it feels like the weight of the world's on our shoulders, and it's like, man, I just, maybe this guy just needs a fresh start somewhere else. And so I think every case can be different. If you have a bunch of guys leaving you who aren't successful and then they're successful somewhere else, sometimes you got to go look back and say to yourself, hey, what are we doing wrong here? We've prided ourselves over the years at Temple. Guys who were 1-star recruits, walk-ons, 2-star recruits, Deion Dawkins, Tyler Matakevich, Hassan Reddick have gone on and been great, great, great pros. And so we want that to be our DNA, but not everyone's going to be a fit for us. And sometimes a player comes in and it's just, there might be a better system. There might be a better culture that's better for who they are. And, you take that and you take it with a grain of salt.
So you come back Saturday, you see the family, and then you watch a little college football. Because I had to text you, that Oregon-Penn State game was wild, right? It was the way Oregon finally seizes control. It's 3-3 at halftime. And then, Penn State comes back, and then it's overtime. Here you are, head coach. There you're just football fan, right? Like, you're just watching. Now, your eyes, you'll see tape and different stuff, but are you watching like a football fan?
I'm watching like a football fan, man. I had the Georgia game, Georgia-Bama here. I had South Carolina up there. I had the Penn State-Oregon game here. And then, I mean, really throughout the day, my son and I sat there. Julie's the best. She was like, she had the girls for volleyball. She's like, I'll take the girls to the volleyball games. And once I was able to do it, I was able to watch football. And I think as you're watching it like a fan, like obviously there's the coach in you. Hey, take a time out here, don't take a time out there, But I think it's what's great about the game of football, right? Like what you saw was a lot of games aren't over till they're over. Wake Forest, Georgia Tech. Wake Forest gets way up, Georgia Tech comes back, comes down to a 2-point conversion. Games came down to long kicks. The Florida State game, Virginia, the night before, we were recruiting, and we got to a TV with like 3 minutes left, and we saw the last 3 minutes, and it's what makes college football so great, right? Like, the teams are going to get down, they're going to come back. I mean, there's these wild swings. Penn State got down, they fought back at home, the crowd was in it, and Oregon just made one more play, and that's what two heavyweights are slugging it out, man. It usually comes down to one last punch, and Oregon got it. That doesn't mean Penn State's not a great team. That was just a really good football game.
What do you tell your quarterback that it's that kind of game, and it's Drew Aller, it's whiteout, it's Oregon, the history of Penn State and winning big games, the whole thing. And now your quarterback, I just want to put it, if you were the coach and it's your quarterback, not Drew Aller, but he throws a pick in that overtime like that in front of all that kind of crowd, that kind of night. How do you handle it as a coach? Well,
I think what's important is you're only in that type of a game, a top 5 matchup because of the guys that are on the field. And so it's, when the man, it's the man that steps in the arena, right? The person who has the guts to go out there and compete. When you take that risk, there's going to be times where it doesn't work out. I think the biggest thing is right in that moment, it's time to have each other's back, man. Put your arm around them. I thought, you saw Coach Franklin did that with Drew. I would do the same thing with our guy. Like, put your arm around him. I love you. But remember, we're only here because of those guys, right? Like, that's a top 5 matchup for a reason. And so no one feels worse in a big moment than the guy who drops the ball, the guy who misses the tackle, or a guy who throws the interception or whatever it is. And so that's a time for me to come together and show brotherhood and show team, because not many teams are going to go undefeated this year. And it's really about which teams can make sure a loss does not beat them twice. That the loss happens, you're disappointed, you're frustrated, you move on and you get better. Not that you're living in your feelings for a long time. And so that to me, that starts right after the game, man. You dealt with it, you go in there, you heal together, you take the night off, and you come back in the next day, get back to work.
Well, it was almost like what you did 2 weeks ago, right? A tough game, lose a tough game. It's like, all right, you know what? We'll mourn for a minute, and then we're going to move on, guys. Let's go. Now, we know what we need to do. We know we have to get back to work, and that's kind of the message.
When we realize in life that no one's coming to save us, that's up to us. That's the age to learn it. You're 14, you're 15, you're 16 years old. Something goes wrong. Your parents step in. Your teachers step in. People who love you step in. At some point, the person who steps in your life is you. And, that's what we want to teach our guys. We want them to have agency. We want them to be warriors. And so as a team, like you lose a game you thought you had a chance to win, you're a play away, like you can feel sorry for yourself, but then you're going to lose again. You got to come back in. You got to own it. You got to learn from it. And then you have to get back to work, because guess what? The next team you face, they want to come in. They want to stick a knife in your jugular, just like Coach Lanning said. Like they want to kill you. And so you better be ready to fight back. And so that's why football is the greatest game. It teaches you all that, right? And that's why I love it. It's easy to be a great leader, be a great captain when you're undefeated. Like, show me who shows up the day after a loss, and I'll show you a good guy, a good team.
All right. So the most important burning question is, you and your son watching college football, what are you eating? What's the menu? If you're watching like a football fan, how do you eat like a football fan?
Julie went to culinary school, right? So she had the meatballs and the sauce going all day. So we had a nice pasta dinner Saturday night, during the game. I actually made whipped a couple things up, whipped up a couple crab cakes. Now they were frozen. I heated them up, but listen, it doesn't matter. I did something, right? So, but now Brian and I we had chips and salsa. We had some crab cakes, a little might have had some other things you're not supposed to eat, but we were definitely on a cheat day. And then, like I said, Julie made pasta and meatballs and a nice red sauce. It was fantastic.
That sounds like heaven. Football, gravy sauce, meatballs at the Rhule house.
You should have come over.
Send me the Husker jet. I'll be there.
The other day, I wasted hours trying to cancel an app subscription on my phone for sleep sounds. Well, today's sponsor, Rocket Money, is here to help. Rocket Money is an easy-to-use app that helps you save more and manage your money better. I love using Rocket Money to cancel my unwanted subscriptions. You connect your bank account and it identifies all your subscriptions in a single list. Then you select the ones you don't want or need anymore, and Rocket Money may be able to help you cancel with just a few taps. Also, it's just a great tool for saving money. I know Rocket Money has helped me and my family save money, and they've helped customers save up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Who couldn't use another $740? To try Rocket Money out today and unlock more features with premium, head to rocketmoney.com/Rhule or click the link in the video description. Welcome into another episode of Office Hours. Blessed to be here right now with the one, the only Deshawn Singleton, also known as 8 Ball, in the special teams meetings. How are you, Luke?
I'm doing good.
So talk a little bit about, obviously you were here before I got here, but talk about your unique journey coming out of high school, kind of where you went, how you got to Nebraska.
Really, it's coming out of high school, like, obviously I didn't have any offers, under-recruited, didn't really have any other options, and I had went to JUCO. So coach gave me a call, and he was like, "Do you want to take a visit?" I was like, "No, I'm not taking a visit. I'm just coming up there." And I came there. They told me that if you do what you have to do, you can get out in 6 months, because obviously I was a qualifier. Did that, overcame that, got offered Nebraska, and now I'm here.
Obviously we have probably the best football building in the world. We see it all. Like, was that what JUCO was like, or what was JUCO like?
No, it was nothing like this. I mean, JUCO, our ice tubs were like little pools. So it was like a little kiddie pool on the outside of the training room. So that was your ice bath. Didn't have all these cool things, this facility and stuff. Didn't have film rooms. We had to go in classrooms to go watch film. You know what I'm saying? And things like that. Weight room. We had probably like 6 racks, and we was practicing on the high school field. So it was nothing like this.
You're one of the tougher guys I know. You're one of the, you're gritty. You don't complain. Like, what did that do to make your character the way it is?
I feel like really how I was raised coming up prepared me for that, because I was the same way in junior college. You know what I'm saying? I was just always grateful for where I was and knew that I had the mindset and the mentality to push through anything. So I feel like coming up prepared me for junior college to stick it through, because I've seen people, like a couple of my friends didn't make it through. You know what I'm saying? Grew up with them, couldn't make it through JUCO, back at the crib. And so I think my life journey prepared me for that, and then being in JUCO prepared me for Nebraska.
So we'll talk about 2 conversations you and I have had. The first one, you came to me one day, your brother DJ, who had come up to visit us in the summer, cut hair, always out there watching 7-on-7. He's a senior in high school. You came to me the one day, some things that happened back home. And you come to me about DJ, like, hey, this just happened. And then you had to make some real life growing up decisions after that.
Yeah. I get a call, I'm in a meeting, and DJ called me, and he's crying on the phone. He said, "DeShon, BJ just got shot." They shot through the car. They had one of my other buddies in there. He got shot 9 times in the leg, and BJ got shot in the head. And BJ's laying on the ground. DJ's on top of him. And he called me. He's like, "Sean, he dead." So I immediately, I didn't know what to do. I think I went to you, and I was like, I need my little brother here.
Yeah.
we got him up here, and that was the situation right here. What was going through my head was a lot of chaos. You know what I'm saying? And I knew I could come to you, because obviously you have a heart of no other. So I just knew I could come to you as a man and just ask for your help. I really didn't know what to do at the time, you know what I'm saying? And my mom told me, like, she feel like it's more safe for him to come with me, you know what I'm saying? And I just promised her, she just promised me, she was like, make sure her baby graduate. And that's all I was just thinking about. He just got to graduate. And, he came up there with me. I had to obviously take care of him. I had to be at the parents-teacher conferences. Had to do all those things, take him to school, come to practice, go to meetings. And obviously, it wasn't nothing that, by God's grace, I made it through. So
now, another time you and I had a conversation. So we're getting ready to get you to the NFL. We're trying to get you in the Senior Bowl. Which all the All-Star games are calling you, and all of a sudden there's the NCAA has the injunction, junior college ruling, because what was once not a blessing became a blessing, that you had to go to JUCO for a semester, and all of a sudden now you're sitting there saying to yourself, like, do I go pro? Do I come back for another year? And you and I met over at the Early Bird at breakfast to walk through having to make that decision, that whole process. Like, what was that? That's another grown. I mean, you made one grown man decision. That's another grown man decision.
Yeah. It was a very grown man decision, but I felt like it was a lot of opportunity in that decision. You know what I'm saying? I could have went pro, but obviously, like, I was thinking about this. Like, I didn't have my degree. You know what I'm saying? I wanted my degree. I told mom I want to be one of the first ones to get a degree in the family. So that was a big part of it. And obviously, I just felt like with the opportunity that you had being in year 3, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be a part of that year 3 program. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like with that decision, I could put the NFL on hold for a sec, because that blessing came out of nowhere. I thought I was done. Like, I was ready to go, coach. I thought I was done.
I thought you were going too.
Yeah, I had it made up. But obviously, when a blessing drops in your lap like that, you might as well be like, I can't fight it, man. When
I think about you, right, because in this job you have so many players. I think about you. I think about a guy that loves football enough that he went to junior college, used a bathtub for an ice bath. Guess what? The water's just as cold as this beautiful thing in here. You got through that. You grinded through that. You came here. You battled some injuries. You're one of the best players in the Big Ten. But when your family needed you, your brother needed you, you put everything on hold to take care of him. And then when the NFL calls, you come back to get your degree, to be a captain, to be a leader. I just think about the impact of that you're having on all these guys. If you could think of one piece of advice, like, there'd be a lot of parents watching this. There'll be a lot of young players, high school players getting ready to go to college. Like, if you had to give one piece of advice for a young man going off to play football in college about that journey that you've learned, what would it be?
Be persistent. Do trial, do anything. Be persistent. You got to be the same man every day, and you got to make that decision every day that I'm gonna get up and do what I'm supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? You just got to be persistent, bro. Nothing else. That's what I live by. I have it saved on my phone. Persistence.
Really? I love that. Well, I love you, man. You're the best.
Yes, sir.
With a combined 33 years of sports reporting experience, my next guests know all about college football and creating content that connects with sports fans. Between the two of them, they've covered everything from basketball to college football to barbecue-related issues. We're going to have to talk about that. They have reported for the Tampa Tribune, Cleveland Plain Dealer, Sports Illustrated, The Athletic, and now with their own On3 podcast. Please welcome to House Rhules, Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman. Thank you, guys.
What an intro. That's amazing.
Guys, I don't know if you could tell, but I read that. I did not. Here's the real intro. All right. Sports people out there, there is no feud between us. We love each other, and we all love college football. And don't believe. Sometimes content sells, so it's good to have you guys on. No, I appreciate you guys doing.
Yeah,
the time.
Matt, you're keenly aware of this, and we'll just get the elephant out in the room out of the way here. I wrote a strongly worded column about something that you said in the off season, and it went a little bit more viral than I anticipated. But we had a nice conversation on the phone, and I have a ton of respect for what you have done and are doing at Nebraska. And I'm happy you don't hate me. I'm hoping that some of the fans that root for your team every Saturday will grow to love me too. But I will say this in my defense, and we don't have to get into it. It came from a good place because Nebraska is moving in the right direction. When you were hired, I said that they are going to get back with just consistent, sustained incompetence, which is something that I think is arguable about the past of Cornhusker football, at least the recent past. And, you guys are moving in the right direction. So that's all. But hey, it might be better for the show if you hate me, though. It's up to you, whatever you want to do.
No, there's not a bit of hate in this heart. And if we're being honest, I do hope people appreciate that, like when they ask me questions, whether it's about scheduling, whether it's CFP, NIL, at least I answer. Like, at least I have a take, right? And so, then it can be like, so-and-so rips, I've interviewed more people that have ripped me for my takes, but it's better than, being boring. It's better than just saying, like, coach speak. Like, I say what I think, and, people can say what they want afterwards,
Well, and that's the double-edged sword with what we do, because we want you to say interesting things, but then we give you shit when you do, and that I get the hypocrisy of that. I try to ride the line when somebody says things that are like Mike Gundy, who we just parted ways with Oklahoma State. Love or hate Mike Gundy, Mike Gundy always told you what was on his mind, and for people in our business, that was amazing. So I love that. Now, Matt, we got to get into the backstory of the nice conversation you and Ari had, because I'm sitting on my couch on a Wednesday night, and I see a number pop up on my phone, and I'm like, oh, this is probably spam, because I didn't have your Charlotte number. I had your number from Baylor. And so the text comes, "This is Matt Rhule." And that's all it said. And I was like, oh no. I'm going to have to clean Ari's mess up here.
Yeah. And that was so funny because, every time I make a mistake, whether it be a big one or a small one, my personal life goal was to make Andy be the person who has to deal with it. But yeah, here's my point of view on it. And I think I shared this with you, Matt, when we talked on the phone. And for those who don't know, you had made a comment about scheduling and whether or not it was advantageous for Nebraska to play tougher games in the non-conference when there is an avenue or a route to the playoff that doesn't necessarily require or benefit enough to put yourself in peril's way to potentially losing a game and hurting your resume. And from my standpoint, on the couch that day when I saw that, I thought, Nebraska just got a 5-star quarterback that would never have gone there in another coaching regime. They're bringing in players at a high level. They're developing. They're making less boneheaded mistakes. They're not doing the things that, they did in previous regimes. And it seems like they are right on the cusp of actually doing things in a big way that brings Nebraska football back. And I've watched you, Matt, rebuild 2 different programs before you got to Nebraska. And I appreciate this new version of you, which is I'm going to just speak for everybody. And hopefully this is my last job. I love all of that about you. But my column, at least when I wrote it, or my intention was, hey, you don't need to worry about scheduling because you guys are doing it so well right now that eventually it doesn't matter who's on your schedule. You're going to be able to beat them. And that isn't the way it was received. And maybe it's because at times when I write, I write, strongly. Headlines also, are out there designed to get attention, aren't necessarily what's in the content of the story. But when I wrote it, I never thought that this would even get on your radar, let alone make people upset. I thought Nebraska fans would read it and be invigorated by the thought process. Dylan Raiola is going into his second year. The skill position players are improved. There's a lot of reason to look at the schedule and say, hey, we can do it. And that's still true. You suffered a tough loss on Saturday. It's still true. And thinking about that, it was not my intention the way it went. And I hope you can appreciate that. But it was more of a complimentary thing than it was an attempt to let's go show Matt Rhule. That wasn't what my. But
I think that speaks to even the fact that I can pick up the phone and call Andy. I think that speaks to his history with me, and I respect the guys who hustle. I respect when back when we used to go to the Fiesta Bowl Summit, and you'd see a core group of guys sitting downstairs, that are working the job, right? Whether, over the years, all these different guys, right? And you see, so you see Andy, you see Ralph Russo, you see Paul Meyerberg, and you take the time to visit with those guys. And so when something comes up, honestly, I hadn't even read the article. It was just kind of the headlines can be pretty inflammatory. But I was like, dang, guys, it's July. I'm on vacation. I just want to go to the beach. And yeah. I'm just getting flamethrowed on social media, which, is part of it. But I think that speaks to the collegiality of being able to pick up the phone and be like, hey, what's going on here? And then you offered for me to go on the show, which I thought about doing. And then thankfully this went on. But No, I appreciate the fact that both of you guys, I want to make it clear, it wasn't like I was calling like, what the bleep? It was more like,
Oh no, I was on your team that night. Because I said, Ari, did you call anybody at Nebraska to give them a heads up? Because the thing when you rip somebody, you have to do is you have to give them a heads up. Hey, I'm going to rip you. And sometimes they understand. Sometimes they're mad. Sometimes you end up having a conversation about it that changes a little bit what you're going to write. But you got to give the heads up. And that's the one where I was like,
so yeah. And Andy called me and we had a long conversation about that because we always, with our extensive history, we worked together at the Athletic for many years. He was at SI and was one of the main personalities of college football during that time period. And you always want to do things journalistically correct, right? And I think that if I look back at it now and I would have known how you and others would have received it, I certainly would have done that. But if you actually go back, and this is what my mindset was, I didn't view it as I'm ripping Matt Rhule. I viewed it as, what's the point of saying this specific thing when you guys have so many good things going for you? And if you actually go and comb through that column line by line, I don't find it as me ripping you.
It was behind a paywall. I would have done it, but I would have had to pay it was behind a paywall. It was like,
so I know.
Well, you also made it free, so you helped the people out because
yes, I'm fighting the good fight for everybody.
Yeah,
exactly. No, that's it. You're a man of the people.
And no doubt, Ari, to your point, what you said, and I think that is the hard thing sometimes about, at least over the years, when you read people's headlines, and sometimes the headline's written by an editor, right? It's just, hey, we need to do this to get people in, and I probably, honestly, I'm probably still a little sensitive from kind of the end of my time in Carolina. Normally as you're kind of on the hot seat and you start to go down, everyone's kind of, they're kind of writing their postmortems on you before you're dead. And I'll never forget, Adam Schefter texted me the morning I got fired. And he's like, have you been fired yet? I heard you're going to get fired. And I was like, can I get fired first before you ask me that question? But
it's the most awkward thing though. I live in Gainesville, Florida. Everybody who follows college sports knows what's going on with Florida right now. And it's the strangest thing being in a small town like this, and Lincoln's very similar. So Billy Napier's kids go to the same school as my kids. And, I see members of the coaching staff all the time. So I don't take the whole conversation about somebody getting fired lightly, because it's not just the head coach. It's also everybody in the organization. Their families have to pick up and move, and we've seen it a lot of times living in this town. It's happened quite a few times over the last few years. So it's such a strange but to with Schefter texting you sometimes you have to ask people that. You just have to say, are you getting fired? And it sucks.
Right. Yeah. Pete Thamel told me years ago, he's like, hey, there might be a time I'm going to have to put you on the hot seat. And so going into my third year in Carolina, I was like, I think the time might be now, Pete. I get people have a job to do. And I think to your point, I mean, going back to Coach Gundy, right? I personally, in my time coaching, there's not a coach that I went against that I had more respect for the job they did, X's and O's wise in coaching and roster, than when I was at Baylor and when he was at Oklahoma State. And then he made the comments before the Oregon game this year, and that kind of went viral. But my point very simply is always take out the school name. Because sometimes when I say things, Paul Feinbaum last year said, just worry about that. Well, but is what I'm saying right or wrong? If you think it's wrong, then we can debate it. Is it right? But when Mike Gundy was winning 11 games, everyone loved what he had to say. What he said was exactly right. There's tiers of money right now that we've never seen before. And we pretended like they're going to go away, and they ain't going away. And so let's just call it what it is. Can you win enough games based upon how much your university has invested? I think that's a real college football question, not let's all get upset and take our side.
Oh, yeah. And I've had conversations with ADs dating back long before NIL. And I actually remember Scott Strickland, who's now the AD at Florida. This was back when he was the AD at Mississippi State. And we were talking about realistic expectations for every school, and do the administration's expectations match the fans' expectations, match the coaches' expectations. And it's very hard. You have to be aligned, and you have to have an administration that understands reality. Now, I think you with Troy Dannon, you got that now. at Nebraska, but a lot of places they don't. It's all out of whack because the fans want one thing, the administration doesn't really understand, and it's tough.
There's no doubt it's tough. And I think there's going to be some universities who either have or will move on from a coach and then regret it for a long time. The University of Nebraska, they fired Frank Solich on a 10-win season. I mean, just think about that. Now, like, I get here 2 years ago and we bring Coach Solich back to a game and they're talking about reversing the curse. Well, that happens to a lot of places when you start saying to yourself, hey, let's get rid of this guy and that'll get us to the next tier. It's a lot more than the coach that gets you to the next tier. It's investment, it's facilities, it's money, it's all the things you talked about, being aligned. You have to have all of that, and then the coach can make a difference.
We are so programmed to having coaches on our show. Like, this feels so great to be on a coach's show. And I just like now that it's like a relaxed environment where we can just, talk to each other. My question to you, Matt, is, and you've been through, different places, different levels, obviously the NFL, different tiers of college football. But now that you are dealing head on with NIL and you're dealing head on with, rosters that aren't equitable from a financial investment standpoint, how does that change your, desire or your love for actual coaching? And how much is it a struggle if you are watching tape against a team that has invested more or less? And what's it like to be a coach who might not have his hands on the money, but also is trying his best to guide that money in the right way while also preparing for games where the investments aren't equitable? I don't even know what it's like to be you.
Yeah. So I would so much prefer. And there was a time when we talked about it was going to be like this, where it was just really, really transparent. Like, you can get on Spot Track, whatever they call Spot Track in the NFL, and see what every guy's making, how much money they're carrying over, and you can just see, okay, this is what it is. Here, what we've done is we built a system which is just all shrouded in secrecy. And so we don't know how much each kid's making. We don't know how much each school's making. And then add into now I happen to know some people. And so I said in my press conference after the Michigan game, like that Tuesday, I said, there's $40 million rosters out there. Now that's not me saying, hey, it's okay that we lost. No, I'm not saying that. And so some people will say that that's why you said it. No, I'm pointing out that no one can defy the gravity of the money. Now, I'll say it this way. No one's going to win who doesn't spend the money to be in the top tier of winning year after year. You might have a good year, but just because you spend the money doesn't mean you're going to win. There's always going to be those teams. But like the Oakland Athletics, the Kansas City Royals, I'm a Royals fan. I don't think they're going to just be perennial World Series winners because they're in small market and they're spending small market money. That doesn't mean that just because you spend the money, you're going to win. But I just wish it was really transparent because I think for some, if you're spending $40 million on your roster, then you better be in the college football playoff. You better be in the Final Four. You better be making a run. And that's maybe why I get myself in trouble a little bit, Ari, because I'm always saying, like, hey, guys, there's a difference between these conferences. And there's a difference between, like, I think everyone who comments on football should have to watch, like, the actual, not the TV copies, but the actual tape and see the speed and the ferocity. Because I'm watching different teams, and I'm like, there's no way this team would win in our conference. So I think it's that.
That I think is really interesting, and Andy and I have had a lot of discussions about this. But, coming up in this business, he's a little bit older than me, but we both have a recruiting background. When he was in his early days at SI, he wrote a lot about recruiting. At The Athletic, when I first became a national reporter, it was all recruiting based, and it was very easy to track who's getting the best players, who's developing the players the best, and who's winning the most. And now I have a hard time because if a coach gets fired or a coach is losing, a lot of times they might be losing in the modern era for reasons outside of things that they used to control. At the end of 2018, everything that the head coach touched was impacted by his decision making, and now the coach might be losing games because of things outside of his control. How, as a person who is the CEO of a major college football program, do you feel like in this new era you have less control over your own fate? You
definitely have less control because it's not even like we're all going to look at it on a year-to-year basis, right? Like, well, hey, last year they lost this guy, or this year they won that beat this guy. But it's really like the guy you lost 3 years ago, 2 years ago, that when he's a senior, he's playing for somebody else. When I'm in recruiting, I like that when people are talking about other schools, I won't talk bad about other schools. But I'll say, well, they'll say, hey, coach, they had 8 guys drafted. I'm like, well, yeah, 5 of those were transfers. Like, who is taking a freshman and developing them the whole way through? I get upset when I lose a player as a sophomore because he can make more money somewhere else. When I know, like, hey, you know what? The best thing for him, I believe, would be to stay here, get a good education, develop under us. Like, I look at the teams I had at Temple, Hassan Reddick, Deion Dawkins. These guys are in the upper echelon of the National Football League. They would have been gone after 2 years. Like, someone would have come in with a bunch of money and they would have left. And so I had way more control then. Again, I want the players to have agency and be able to move around. I just think if we had some transparency to it, then you'd really be able to say, like, okay, who's doing more with less? Who's doing less with more? I think that's a really important thing about coaches.
It's going to be really interesting, Matt. I was talking to a GM at another school the other day, and I don't think people realize this coming year is going to be so different from this past year, because you've got this rev share thing, but the rev share thing started this year. All this new money came in. And so everybody's going to think, and like every kid's agent's going to think, oh, my guy's getting a raise. And that's not what's going to happen, because there's not going to be this huge infusion of new money. People are going to be getting pay cuts, and you guys are going to have to make some hard decisions, and you guys are going to have to make some honest evaluations. And I know you coach with an edge and you're very blunt with your players. Do you think that helps when it comes down to that next step where you've got to have these honest conversations at the end of the season about, we want to retain you, but this is what we can give you?
Yeah, I think it helps a ton. I don't think anyone's going to give you this huge discount, right? Like, I'm going to give you this huge discount. But I think if the one question I've asked players in the past, like, when we had 2 portals, I had a couple of players this past spring that, schools were coming in on. And I just said, listen, if it's better for you to go, go. But let me ask you one question. Are you happy? And I think that's the one thing. I see a lot of kids transfer and they have success. I see a lot of kids transfer and they don't have as much success. And I'm like, man, if you're happy and you're doing well, like, why mess that up? But I think if you've had that relationship, if the only time you meet with a player is to talk about what money they're making the next year, it becomes very business transactional only, and they move forward. Like, I'm not gonna leave the University of Nebraska to take another job because someone gives me an extra, 5% raise. I'm happy here. So, as long as the schools are in the same area, you're going to go with the place where you're the most happy. And I think it's the same thing with our players. What's happened is there's several schools who they prepaid the rev share this year. So originally, originally it was supposed to be, everyone front loaded, and then it was supposed to be whatever it was, like April 13th or May 13th. Hey, the house is going to go into effect. There's no more prepaying. And what happened was when we fought over roster limits, who in the world would fight over roster limits? Like, oh wow, it's a bad thing that kids want to play college football. That we have, it's a bad thing that I have walk-ons who pay to be on my football team. What are we talking about? So when we fought over roster limits for a month or 6 weeks or whatever it was, some schools were able to take all their extra NIL and go out and raise the money and prepay. So you're going to get into a spring portal now. Why you couldn't explain to me why it's in January, but it's in January, right? The money goes through the whole year. You're going to have schools that have $8, $9, $10 million just this spring alone, and then whatever they have for next year. So the thought of, hey, this is evened out, not really true. It's going to take a while for it to even out.
Some people think the NIL Go thing is going to be effective, and some people don't, and people are operating as if. How do you guys manage that piece of it where everybody's kind of playing by a different set of rules?
So the first thing I did was I went and hired Pat Stewart, who I'd worked with way back when at Western Carolina. I worked with at Temple with Al Gold, but then he went to the Patriot. I did not get into coaching to have spreadsheets open and do all the math. Like, it's so much and different than the NFL. As you know, in the NFL, you can carry your money over from year to year. So you can build, hey, like in the NFL, like let's build, hey, in 3 years, we're going to go make these big signings. We're going to have an unbelievable team. Here, the money ends each year, so you have to use it. So I needed to go hire someone that A, could have these conversations with players, B, who would not let the emotion, like these guys are my guys. Like, I love them. So like, there's always an emotional attachment, and I need someone that's going to manage the money with them. I think the whole NIL thing, I think what we're finding out is it's not coming under wraps anytime soon. There's going to be teams that, that can get legitimate businesses to sponsor their kids, and they're going to move up. It's one of the reasons why I came to Nebraska, to be quite honest with you. Like with our fan base and with, we should be able to have legitimate NIL deals. Our women's volleyball team, we have Olympians. They get them. Dylan Rhule, he has legitimate things. Ja'Cory Barney should. So there's going to be I think it's just going to be a separation of the haves and have-nots. I talked to a really good friend of mine, coach in the Big 12, not Joey McGuire because everyone knows we're close, but someone else. And he told me this spring, he's like, yeah, we have 14 million in rev share, but we've only raised half of it. And how long can you raise 14, 15 million dollars a year? Like Nebraska, we sell it every game. We don't have to raise it. It's just gonna stratify college sports so much.
If you have to keep going back and asking, it's going to be a problem. And we've talked to Joey a couple times on the show about this, and Joey's in a different universe, but Joey's got his own set of problems because Joey answers to a billionaire. Like they got the roster, but you got to deliver the results now. So
yeah, and Joey, went from being a former high school coach who's going to turn around Texas Tech by looking through underappreciated and undervalued Texas players and being the first offer for everybody to like being the front of a major business where he's like all of a sudden on the hot seat despite being the most winningest coach since Mike Leach. And, they haven't even lost a game yet. You know what I mean? Like, it's like either do it now or you're out, like that's a difficult position to be in.
There's no doubt. James Blanchard is their GM. James worked for me. I gave him his first college job. He worked for me at Baylor. He's brilliant. But I'm opening up Street and Smith's or whatever it was. I don't know. They still have Street and Smith's, Lindy's, Athlon, I don't know. And literally there's a full page picture of James. And it's like the talent evaluation, all this stuff is really at the front and center of this whole deal. I just don't want, the thing that I've never wanted is I don't want college football to become like 10 teams. I don't want it to become like just the South and I hated when the Pac-12 died. Like I want college football to be in the Northeast. I want it to be out west. I want it to be all over the country because I think that will grow the game way more than just 10 schools winning it every year.
Well, and the best part was the regional flavor. Like Pac-12 games had a certain look to them. Big Ten games had a certain look to them. SEC games, like you knew what you were watching before you even saw the logos, and that's gone. I used to do tons of geographical studies of where recruits go because when I first got SI, Tommy Tuberville was at Auburn, and he goes, we just try to get people from within 5 hours drive. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to study every team and who's got the most people from within 5 hours drive. And like Jim Harbaugh ended up loving that story. Apparently, like Andrew Luck was telling me he's reading it in the locker room. And but it was so interesting. And if you go back and you look at rosters from the 90s and the early 2000s. Nebraska would go get guys out of Jersey every once in a while and get a really good player, but they also did a lot of really good recruiting in Nebraska, in Iowa, in Minnesota, in nearby states. And Alabama was like 65% in-state kids. And that's just not the way anymore. Everybody's from everywhere.
The thing that I've struggled with the most, at least trying to analyze this sport, Matt, as you know, this used to be so easy. You would just go look at On3’s top 15 teams, and then you would figure out, okay, well, this team signed X number of 5 stars, X number of 4 stars, X number of top 100 players. You would have a pool of 6 teams that accumulated them at a clip that nobody else could match, and one of those 6 teams would win the national championship. That was college football for 20 years. There was only one, or there were 3 teams that won a national title between 2000 and 2021 that hadn't signed a top 5 class in any of the previous 4 years. And that was Clemson twice with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, and Auburn when they had Cam Newton. And I think you can see the common denominator between the 3 exceptions. So the thing that I find is most difficult now is that I don't know when these job openings are coming up, like what the actual plan is when somebody takes over at a job. Like Virginia Tech is going to be open here, right? So when the Virginia Tech coach takes the Virginia Tech job, whoever that may be, when they sit down and they write their Bill of Rights or their Declaration of Independence of everything that they need to do in their job to be successful, is it the same everywhere now? It's not just attack these 4 areas that are within it's to deploy our money the best possible way. Borders don't matter, and try to sign and get the best bang for the buck that we can from players that, may or may not be good in the future. Like, how hard is it to even distinguish or differentiate certain jobs from like the plan? Geography used to be the ultimate thing, and now it doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah, I really think it's going to come down to like, what's their balance sheet look like? Like, how much money do you actually have? Because one of the unique things I'm starting to see in recruiting is you'll have some players who, instead of going to the best conference or the best school, will go to a lower conference or a lower rated school for more money, because for them, maybe they're a 3-star recruit, but for that school, they can't get a 4 or 5-star. They're going to invest 4 or 5-star money from the other school into that student athlete. Now that young person's there for a year, and all of a sudden they realize, wait, there's not a lot of good players here with me. Because if you're on a really good roster, and unless you have crazy NIL on top of it, like basically you have to pay everyone. So you don't have these monster numbers if there's a salary cap. That's what makes parity in the NFL. So you have some young people that are like, well, I'd rather make more money and play at less of a school. Like, you're going to start seeing people choose conferences and schools you never would have thought possible. And I think the other component of it is I look at like the people who came in the year that I came in to Nebraska. Guys took other jobs. A lot of them came from other schools. They could bring their roster. They could bring guys with them. Like if I were to, I couldn't bring Christian McCaffrey. I couldn't bring Brian Burns, right? Like, they wouldn't have wanted to go with me. They were doing fine in the NFL, but
Brian Burns, please go get the quarterback.
That'd be amazing. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. But if I were to leave today and go coach at the University of Anchorage, you can take these guys with you. So I think, at first you thought, hey, there's not going to be a lot of job openings. There's 3 job openings 4 weeks in. So it behooves people like, hey, as you're thinking about who I'm going to hire, like, should you hire someone that's got a good roster that would bring their team with them? There's so much strategy in this. And if you're taking a job, the last thing else, you're taking a job, you're going to want to see the financials of like, hey, how much rev share do you have left over? Like, there's a January portal, like, who am I signing? How am I going to get these kids in here? It is so much more than it was 3 years ago when you're like, what schools should my kids go to?
The thing that amazes me the most now is like if somebody's looking for a coordinator, you almost have to look at who their quarterback is and can they bring their quarterback. Like if it's an offensive coordinator, and then I was watching North Texas beat Army to go 4-0 this week. Well, they hired Sam Houston State's coordinator and he brought 6 starters from that defense. Like it's almost now like you said, you're not just looking at the coach, you're looking at who they can bring with.
It's amazing.
I have this question because back in the day, and I keep referencing back in the day like I'm some old guy, but like it is. There were certain teams, like I watched a clip and I was telling Andy about this on the show earlier this week of the 2020 or the 2019 LSU Alabama game. And they showed all the players that were on the field on both teams. And it is like 15 current NFL All-Pros in that game and like very recognizable names. I don't need Andy. You can go down the list for me if you want. But, back in the day when you were winning national titles, the mega teams, the super teams that were winning them in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18 and beyond had 10 bona fide NFL players on their team playing at all times. And now that there's more of a roster distribution in college football, I think the number of players that you absolutely have to have on your team in order to win at a higher level has diminished a little bit because everybody's a little bit closer together than they used to be. And I'm wondering, when you're watching film, Coach, and you're looking at your team and you're looking at the other team, I'm sure you get a sense of like, well, they have this many dogs and we have this many dogs. How many future NFL players do you think a college football team needs to have on their roster right now to win a championship at the college level?
I think it's probably in that 10 to 12 range, and I think it's probably depends. Now that we've associated money with it, it starts to go to the positions. The quarterback will always be the most important position. What's your offensive line, defensive line like? Do you have a dominant receiver? Though I think in college, dominant tailbacks are much more important than they are in pro football. The ground game will always be the most important part of college football as opposed to the pro game. And so it really, you start to say to yourself, like, hey, what are the most important positions? Like in college, most people sit in quarters. Safety, having a great safety is awesome, but you better have a boundary corner that can shut down the other team's best receiver. So I think it comes back to prioritization. That's why, going back, I love it to be transparent. So if we all have the same money, then it's like, okay, well, who allocated their money the best and who's then building a system around it? If one team has 40 and one team has 20, then it doesn't even matter, right? You're going to
rank the positions for us, though. Like, what do you think the top 5 are in terms of money allocation? Quarterback 1, and then what's after it?
Quarterback, offensive tackle 2, pass rusher 3, shutdown corner, dominant receiver 4 and 5. Just tailback.
D-tackle next.
Yeah, D-tackle and tailback. Like we played Michigan last week. They beat us. They beat us by 3. They did a nice job, but they had Deshawn Barnum, I think started at Maryland, who they moved to edge, and he was dominant. and they had Justice Haynes, who's started Alabama, I think, and he's a tailback. And those guys are elite players. So I think the college tailback position is much more important than it is in pros. But I put that at 6.
We haven't talked about that much. The one thing that I've been saying, and Andy, I don't know if you agree with me, but I felt like the dominant receiver was moving up those rankings a little bit.
I think so, but I think Matt makes a good point because in the NFL, unless it's Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry, who are just freaks of nature, if you have a good offensive line, you can put somebody back there who's adequate and you'll do fine. In college, if you have a fairly special tailback who may not be special in the NFL, doesn't have to be Saquon Barkley. I mean, you're talking about the difference between 5 yards of carry and 7 yards of carry, and all of a sudden it's a different game.
Yeah, no, I think so. And again, whether you put the corner or the receiver as 4 or 5, I just think those are the top 2 positions, right? Like if you have a receiver like that can command a double team in college football, or command you having to roll the coverage to them. Now you can run the football all day long. And you mentioned those LSU teams. Obviously, they were dominant everywhere, but they had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Like, I mean, what do you do? And then all of a sudden, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire running duo and then Joe Burrow. I mean, yeah, I'll take that team. I mean, I'll take that team. They still have the video game, the college football. I take that team because they had a little bit of everybody. They were dominant.
And Clyde couldn't just run duo well. When he ran that angle route, he was pretty deadly too. So
no doubt.
So speaking of positions, you have a positional value or a position that you value more than I think most coaches in this age, and I appreciate it. You're a fullback guy. I love fullbacks. I love that there's a position where, because I played offensive line, so I appreciate people who just want to block, and I also might have a kid who loves to block, but is not going to be 300 pounds. So if he wants to play in college, there better be some teams that have a fullback. So.
No doubt. Yeah, I think it's the great neutralizer. Like, even if we don't use it all the time, but if a couple times a game, you put someone out there that's going to run through somebody's face. We had a kid at Temple, Nick Sharga, tore his ACL going into his senior year, put on a brace and played the whole year and was dominant. Ended up in an NFL camp, and now he's a priest. So if you hear this, I hope you're doing well. But just wired to like run through somebody's face, which at the end of the day, football is still about being physical.
Well, and the other thing about Nebraska that I love is the walk-on program historically, and that's what drove me crazy about the roster spot debate. Like, how in the world can you deny people who are paying tuition at your school a chance to be on the football team?
It's crazy, and I'm glad they grandfathered those kids in. I mean, I have some amazing kids that, literally, I had kids say to me, Coach, if you have to get rid of me, you have to get rid of me, but I will be here until the day you tell me I have to leave this building. I've said this a couple of times. I had this one young man, Jacob Brandel. He said, my only goal is someday to be able to bring my kids back here and see my name on the wall as a letterman, like I came and saw my dad's name. And I was a walk-on at Penn State, and I wasn't a good walk-on. I was a guy that like found the way to get on some special teams and play.
You were still better walk-on than me, so you got that.
You're a better podcaster. You're a better reporter. I had that one thing, so I'll take that.
Well, I mean, being a successful head coach is a pretty good thing to
it's
have
okay.
on your.
You did all right,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean that's what people don't. I was talking about this with somebody, the life of a walk-on offensive line, where I was explaining like what scout teams like for those people, because the defense goes full speed. Like the starting defense goes full speed. You're basically being fed to the wolves every day, and the guys who make it through 4 years of that, 5 years of that, they're just tough bastards. Like they may never play on the field.
That's it. If you look at my staff, like I've got coaches that were walk-ons. My strength coach was a walk-on, because at the end of the day, you're doing it because you love it. You're doing it because, to your point, like it's one thing if you're, not even practicing, but if you're out there and you're getting someone running through your face and you're, I mean, I was on some great teams at Penn State, and there were some great players, and it takes a physical toll on you, but you love it. And you love the game. And so I think there's something special about people who do it. They're going to be successful in whatever area of life they choose after playing's done. All right, I got to ask you now. We talked earlier about, now, because I've lived in New York guy, New Jersey guy, PA guy, but lived in North Carolina.
Yep.
Lived in Texas. Here I am in Nebraska. We recruit Kansas City a lot. And so you said barbecue-related issues. Talk to me about what some of these issues are, and let's talk just a little bit about barbecue, because I'd like to hear some takes from you.
Well, I'm probably a pretty big barbecue snob because I've been really lucky in this job to go around and travel as much as I have and get to taste all these different. So, but I'm originally from South Carolina, Matt. So, like when you were in Charlotte, if you drove down I-77 to Columbia, your barbecue experience got really different as you drove. I admit I come from a very weird place where my idea of barbecue when I was a kid, what my mom would hand me when we went to get some barbecue, was a pulled pork sandwich in mustard-based barbecue sauce. And it's awesome, but people who aren't from South Carolina are just like, what the hell? Why would you do that? Or, North Carolina, they do the vinegar, like in Eastern North Carolina, it's chopped pork in vinegar. And people in South Carolina are like, why would you chop it? It's not going to be juicy that way. But I'm telling you right now, you go to the Skylight Inn in Ayton, North Carolina, they have this cutting board. It's like this giant block, and you can hear it. It's like people playing drums. They just put the pork on the cutting board and just, and the cutting board it's concave because they cut it so much, and they dip it in the fat and they put it in the styrofoam, and they hand you these, like, we call them hoe cakes. I don't, it's like a flat round cornbread, and they hand you that, and they have this vinegar sauce that goes with it. It is heaven. But that's the thing. Like, I love all that. I'm not one of those people who's like, real barbecue is in Texas and it's brisket cooked with salt and it's just salt and pepper. Now, I do think you don't need sauce if you cook it properly. I'll stand by that. So come at me, Kansas City, because you got to stop pouring all that crap all over your barbecue.
Wow. See that to me.
But there's new places in Kansas City that don't do that. So,
well, like, listen, and Matt, you're talking to somebody, and this is Andy, who spent $129 on barbecue yesterday for lunch. So, like, this is like a true story. We went.
I was with Ari in Dallas, and he took me to a new place. I'm like, well, we have to try everything, bud.
Yeah. So we got 9 pounds of meat. I don't like, and like Andy is such, like, I'm from Phoenix. There's a place called Little Miss Barbecue in Phoenix.
Little Miss is the best barbecue west of the Rockies. Show some freaking respect, Ari.
But it wasn't there, I don't think, when I grew up. I didn't grow up in the same areas of the country that you did. So my exposure to barbecue is definitely limited and certainly different than yours. But like this idea that sauce is offensive is just so bothersome to me. It's like, sauce is awesome. Like, what's wrong with you?
Well, because sauce is what you use to cover up when you didn't cook it right. Like, that's when you cook it home. Like,
barbecue is good, dude.
I can't cook a brisket to save my life. You need to sauce the brisket I cook you. But when you go to an expert, someone who holds himself out to be a master, a pit master, then I want brisket that I don't need to put sauce on.
I mean, nothing is not improved by sugar sauce.
Matt, I have a food question for you, though, because the people of Nebraska created a combination that I did not know anything about until I started doing this job. And I went to Nebraska to cover a Nebraska-Iowa game and was first exposed to this. Chili and cinnamon rolls.
It's amazing.
The greatest combination.
It's amazing. So I've learned my lesson the hard way, because when I went from North Carolina, I was at Western Carolina, and so barbecue to me was like barbecue and all three sauces. You could pick.
Tomato based. On the western side. Cullowhee, North Carolina is a hell of a place there, Matt.
It's a great place. I loved my time there, and they had hush puppies. So I go to Baylor to be the head coach at Baylor, and they say, "Coach, you like barbecue?" And I'm a guy from New Jersey. I'm replacing Art Browse, who's a Texas legend, right? And they say to me, "Coach, you like barbecue?" I said, "Oh yeah, I can't wait to get some barbecue. We'll get some brisket, get some hush puppies." And they went, "Like, who would ever eat a hush puppy?" I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So that's why I hired Joey McGuire.
It's so funny that people in Waco were snobby about anything. Their food scene's improved quite a bit, but I remember the first time I went to Waco, they're like, "The best thing we got here are these things called crazy wings," and I was like, "What is that?"
Which is pretty.
It's not actually a wing. They're delicious, but
No. It's moved way up, but yeah, when I first heard that here, I was like, that doesn't sound very good. And I went to a recruit's house, and Mom had it, and I was like, this, and she said, just think about this: when you have chili growing up, did you have cornbread back? And I said, yeah, my mom always had cornbread and chili, and she was like, now just think about what would make cornbread even better if you put sugar icing on top of it. So a cinnamon roll, and then you're eating the chili, then you have something sweet, then you eat the chili, then you have something sweet. I've seen people mix it and just dump it in, but I'm more of a have the chili, have the cinnamon roll. It's pretty dang awesome, if we're being honest.
It is. And so there's a restaurant called Lead Belly in Lincoln. And I remember when it first opened, I went there and they had a chili and cinnamon roll burger, which
That sounds pretty wild.
The guy, I don't think they do it anymore, but the guy told me that they put it on the menu as a joke and people started ordering it. I don't think it's on the menu anymore, but it was pretty awesome.
You know, Andy, the thing that I think is interesting is just the combination of what you would view as a dessert or a savory food and a dessert. And like I'm be willing to try it. In my many times in Lincoln, I've never eaten the two combination.
You got to. The legend I heard, and we'll have to find out from the source here, is that somewhere in Nebraska or maybe Western Iowa, there was a school cafeteria that had an abundance of chili and abundance of cinnamon rolls one day, and they needed to just get rid of it all. So they just served it all at once. Yeah, and then tradition was born.
Matt, you are accomplished in very many ways, right? The one thing that I wanted to say before you go is that a good podcast always has a take, right? You have to have a take. You want one about food that I'm going to leave you with that's going to annoy some people, including Andy?
Oh, please. God. I know where he's going with this.
Where am I going? Let's see how well you know me.
It's the Mexican food take.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay, all right.
I will if you need it later.
No. Please, no.
But
I don't have 3 hours.
I live in Dallas now, and we have Terry Black's, and we have all these different places. There's a place called Heim Barbecue that I think is absolutely delicious and one of the best restaurants in Northeast Texas. But the cuisine that you got to grow up around, the pizza, the Italian food, the carb-based foods, you could remove barbecue off the face of the earth to me. If that was like, if you're doing like a food category, what you got growing up, barbecue shouldn't even be a food item when you're comparing it to the other thing. Now I'm going to disappear and let Andy freak out.
That is quite. Let me just say this. I don't think I was till I was 17 probably that I ever had a pizza from a box. Like pizza, you're supposed to walk in, you're supposed to have it made, you're supposed to say, "I'll have give me a slice of cheese, give me a slice of the buffalo mozzarella." Like you're supposed to have slices of pizza. Like it's just, but it's impossible if you're not in New York, if you're not in Philly, if you're not in Connecticut. It's just really hard to get the water right, to get the sauce right. I like going to Chicago. I like the pizza there. There's a couple places here in Lincoln. There's a place called Isles that I love. It's like going back in time. There's a place called Momo's. I just think when you find great pizza, it is the ultimate comfort food, and it makes you just feel.
And if you had to make one disappear, Andy, I'm going to ask you this. I don't think I've ever asked you this. One has to disappear from the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Ribs? Or pizza, what disappears?
Well, can I eat other barbecue meat? Can I eat other smoked meats?
No. You cannot have barbecue or you cannot have pizza. Which one are you getting rid of?
I'm getting rid of pizza, but I'm not happy about it. Like I love pizza. And I will admit that people from where Matt's from do pizza better than people from where I'm from. It's fine. Like we're good at what we're good at. And Matt, the thing I love that we don't really have in the South, those Italian restaurants, the little family Italian restaurants, like you go to New York City or Philly and you walk in and the waiter goes, "Do you trust me?" And you say, "Why, yes, I do." And all of a sudden there's the arancini, there's the sausage and peppers, and it's all coming out. And you're like, okay, I don't know what the bill is going to be, but I don't even care at this point.
So
I mean, but
there's a place in Atlantic City called Chef Vola's. If you go back and watch Boardwalk Empire, it's been there since then. And Lou comes over to the table, and I'm like, just do it. There's 10 of us, you got it. And it's just like he takes you on a tour, an emotional and physical. You're gonna feel it for 2 days. But even like there used to be a place in Philly called Mr. Joe's Cafe. And the Termini family, I believe they started. And there was a woman there, I think it was Miss Annette. Miss Marie. She would come over, and it was, it's BYOB, right? And you get some coffee. She's like, "Honey, you want some sugar in that?" And I was like, no, I don't put sugar. She's like, no, you want some sugar, trust me. Walks over, puts a little sambuca in your coffee.
Yeah.
Sambuca in the middle of the day with a night. It's recreating family. That's the only reason why I would say pizza and Italian food. It's like you can feel and taste family as you eat it. But that's me.
Yeah, he said it was a physical journey and a
Emotional.
taste journey, but I also feel like it might be like a spiritual journey and, frankly, for some people, a sexual journey. That sounds incredible.
Already had to do it.
Yeah, I had to do it. But like, honestly, though, like a chicken parm sandwich, some of those sandwiches that you see in Philadelphia, the cheesesteaks, the pizza, like that is like my comfort food. And listen, I love barbecue, and I always have to do this thing where you have to choose one or the other. They're both great, but there's nothing better. Like there's no region. If you could only eat in one region of the country for the rest of your life, like if you don't pick the Northeast, there's like something wrong with you. Like it's like not even, there's no other answer. Like that's it. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm staying in the South, but
Yeah.
yeah, me and my collard greens and fried chicken will be perfectly just fine.
Yeah.
It's just like picking your favorite conference, picking your favorite food region thankfully we have them all. And,
Well, the beauty of the Big Ten now is you have everything. You got it all.
We're going to be in Maryland. We're going to be in LA. I'm going to have sushi. I'm going to have crab cakes. I'm going to have, we go a little bit of everywhere. So
You literally did just describe our podcast perfectly, because you have the Southern gentleman and the Yankee who have their separate opinions. And
You're from Arizona.
No, I know, but like I lived my entire
You're like you
career.
are basically a snowbird.
Yeah, I spent my entire professional career covering Big Ten football, and you've spent your entire career being in the South and your whole life. So there's a different aspect to it. But the one thing I've always been dying to know, and like I know going on the road and recruiting might be tough when you have a family and it's exhausting and stuff. But man, you must have been able to eat. So you make time on recruiting trips to try the local places that people talk about. Like, are you just like the most well-fed, most diverse eater in the history of the world?
Yes. I'll be on the road this week, and on Thursday night, like we land. We'll actually be in Fort Worth, and Dr. Susan Elza, who runs our program, and she ran the UIL in Texas. She right away on my thing, she put down 3 restaurant options with the menus. Like, to me, when I go somewhere, I want to eat something there that I can only eat there. Like, I don't want to go eat at a chain. I want to go and I want to eat something that I can only get one. Like, I used to live in Buffalo. And you can't convince me that the best wings in the world are not in Buffalo. I lived in New York. You can't convince me the best pizza. So when I'm in Fort Worth, I want to eat what's there. It used to be head coaches could go to the houses, and I've eaten some amazing meals with families and parents. Now the rules have gotten way harder in terms of us being at people's houses. But yeah, I don't miss many meals. I find a way.
Ed Orgeron tells great stories about having to eat the 6th bowl of homemade gumbo in one night because you can't turn it down because they'll get offended.
No, you cannot say no.
The best stories are the ones from coaches who I will not name, who will tell you about when they had to blow up the bathroom at a recruit's house. Because we know it's happened.
Yeah, I've been able to avoid that one. The best is when you stack dinners, like you go to one person's house and one person's house, and you're like, this is gonna be something else. This is gonna be 3 meals in a couple hours. But you know what? It makes it fun.
Man, for the sake of not making your podcast 6.5 hours long, I just feel like I need to ask every head coach this. What's the most, like, and you don't have to say names or anything, but have you had a truly awkward interaction or a moment or something that like you still think about on an in-home visit?
Oh yeah.
Because you're going into somebody's home, it's intimate.
I went. I don't want to be respectful, but I went into someone's home years and years ago with Fran Brown, the head coach of Syracuse. Fran's one of the greatest recruiters. He might be the greatest recruiter I've ever been around in my life. And some guys in the neighborhood like were out kind of like doing business on the street, and he like walked in the house. He walked back out. He was like, "Yo." Blew the whistle. He's like, "Guys, go around the corner." He's like, "You shouldn't be set up here. Go around the corner. Leave us alone." I'm sitting there like, I'm like, what is happening? And Fran's redirecting the whole local economy. But yeah, no, I mean, I've had some, like I said, Fran Brown, like, it's no doubt what he's doing at Syracuse because I've had
you knew when he got the job, right? That this was going to happen.
Yeah, Fran's not going to lose. I recruited Fran out of Hudson Valley Community College 20 years ago to come play for me at Western Carolina. Like, he's just a winner. He's going to will things to happen. And
when I was at the Athletic, you want to talk about awkward head coach reporter interactions. I was still at the Athletic when he got hired at Syracuse, and he was talking about how he's going to go get the best players around. And this was pre NIL and all this stuff. This was like still when recruiting was kind of done.
Oh, there was NIL. It was only 2 years ago.
We hadn't gotten into the discussion that we had today.
Yeah.
It was at the very beginning of it. And he goes, yeah, we're just going to go get a bunch of 4- and 5-star players. And like I called them on the phone because I had to write a feature about it. And I said, Fran, with all due respect, I know all about your past, and every single person that's come across you as a human knows that you're a great recruiter and that you're a good coach and that you're going to be successful there. But like, do you think maybe you should like dial it back a little bit? Like when it comes to like promising signing these top 15 classes? And he got like super offended. Like he was like, what, you don't think I can do it? What do you mean?
20 minutes later, Ari committed to Syracuse, even though no offer had been extended.
But it was funny because we had like a kind of it wasn't a podcast. I was just interviewing him with the tape recorder, and we got into this like back and forth banter about like whether or not he could do it. Turns out he's doing pretty good. After it was over with, he's like, you can call me anytime because you said something to my face that not a lot of people would have said, and I respect that. And like, from that phone call on, I knew it was going to work out for him. And
that's who he is. But you know who else he is? Every year on my mom's birthday, he calls my mom. He's just salt of the earth, family guy, elite guy. But yeah, I mean that whole staff: Elijah Robinson, Jeff Nixon, Fran Brown. We were all at Baylor together. Like some of us were at Temple. Like those guys, they're going to find a way to win. They just don't lose. They just don't lose. Fran's elite. All right, well, guys, I probably have to get back and do some work here. I got to get ready for my trip to Fort Worth and figure out where I'm going to eat. So if you guys have any recommendations, text
Panther
me.
City barbecue.
Would you send him to Panther City or Heim?
Both, hopefully. But
if you make it to Heim.
Heim's a little easier because they have the one in Dallas. You never have to wait in line there. Panther City's more, they've got the line. If you've got a chance or if you've got an advanced team that can do it for you, they can get it for you.
Yeah, Heim's got great sides.
I love a good side. I love the sides. Andy, what's your feeling? Do you ever been to like down in Charleston to like Rodney Scott, like whole pig barbecue?
So I've been to the original Scott's Barbecue in Hemingway, South Carolina. It's up in the PD region, and it looks
burned down, or is there another one now?
Listen, there's no such thing. Like every good barbecue place is burned down at least once. So it is. So Hemingway, South Carolina, middle of nowhere. I was going to, I think. Oh, I know what it was. Steve Spurrier was doing a Gamecock Club speech out in Conway, where Coastal Carolina is. So I was going to. It was at the height of his winning 11 games a year at South Carolina. So I was doing a story on him, and I was like, "Oh, I'm close to Hemingway. I got to try this place." It looks like a lumber yard threw up, but it's whole hog, chopped awesome. It up. You at the counter, you can buy the pork rinds, the skins that they just did. I bought a pound of pork. I just ate the pork, and then I had pork rinds the rest of my drive. It was amazing. And I know that Charleston has the bougie version of it because
I went to that one, and he was in there. I met him, and he's a big Eagles fan. At the time, I was in Carolina, and so I take him like twice a year, and I'm always like, "Please come to Lincoln. Please, I will help. I will make sure that every meal we eat from your place because it was." In a world of barbecue, it was just a little bit different, and I just really loved it. So
those whole hog places are so special because there's so much effort required. Like, so you don't find them in a lot of places. A lot of South Carolina, North Carolina, that's pretty much the only places you find them. But they are there was one in South Carolina, in Holly Hill, South Carolina. It was a whole hog buffet. They were only open Friday and Saturday. And I asked him, I was like, do you think you'd make more money if you were open more time? And this is Sweatman's is the name of the place. And the guy goes, no, because the rest of the week we spend chopping down wood to feed the fire. I was like, you guys got to figure it out.
This hour we just spent, I think proves a great point that people that maybe people think don't get along can come together, get along. We figured out NIL. We figured out scheduling. We figured out pizza barbecue, and now we've figured out how to make whole hog barbecue accessible 7 days a week. I mean, what is a unifying?
You need a lumber company, basically.
No, I really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you. I know you guys are professionals, so thanks for humoring an amateur like me.
Yeah, no,
I appreciate you guys.
No, when I heard this was launching, I told Ari, I was like, he's one of the few in college football, one of the few college football head coaches who can pull this off. Like he's going to be fine because anybody I've seen you in action. Anybody you talk to, they feel like they've known you for 20 years. So like you already have the thing you need. Like if you go back and watch, or if tapes existed of my first Sirius XM shows, it's the worst thing ever because I was what do I do? Like your first episode, you already had it down. So this is just going to get easier.
Yeah, and it was a great pleasure to come on here with you, Matt, and I have a lot of respect for you and what you're doing there. It's going to be fun to watch you guys for the rest of the year. So thanks for having us on.
Thanks, brother. Andy and Ari.
Hey, thanks, Matt.
Appreciate
you.
All right, back here at House Rules, we love our anything but football segment. Coach got varied lifestyle, man. Like he's got great taste. He's into a million different things. One of the things that I love that you're into so much is leadership. I know I learned by doing this. I love how deeply you're into leadership. So we got a question from one of our audience, Griffin Weiser. He says, listen, how do I balance clocking in 50, 60 hours a week at work and being a good dad and a husband? He said, I'm determined. He's 24 years old. I'm 24, determined to take my family business to the next level. I just don't want to miss out on the special moments that happen with my wife and my daughter.
There is no balance, so everyone has to get that word. I mean, if you want to be involved in things that are special, there is no balance. It's a juggling act to me, but you have to juggle with rhythm, and I think that's the biggest thing that I've had to learn is what's the rhythm. As I said in the John Gordon episode, when I come home, I don't have my phone on when I walk in. Like to me, if you're scrolling reels, while you're there with your kids, it doesn't matter if you're there or not. Go outside and play catch. Like go hit the volleyball back and forth. When I was younger, I used to say it's quality time. It's quality and quantity, and you have to steal the quantity when you can get it. It's Sunday morning here. Like Leona comes to work with me. Now she might not hang out with me very much when she's at work, but at least she knows I care. And that I want her around me. When it's calling my son back from college, hey, come watch the Penn State-Oregon game with me. I just think it's really important that we schedule out time. I think you have to have a date night with your wife every week. I think, I have two daughters. I think taking each of them to do something by themselves. I took Leona this summer to see a movie, just her and I, and how special that is. I think you have to schedule it out. I think you have to be intentional. And I think you can't beat yourself up for the fact that you're trying to create a business that changes the life for your kids and changes the opportunities that are there. There were so many times, when I was coming up in coaching, where I was like, man, this schedule, the amount of time I'm around my kids is so tough. I thought about getting out of it. I remember sitting there talking to my mentor, George DeLeon, and him saying, maybe you should coach Division III. Maybe you should coach high school. It's okay. And I had to make a decision. I was born to do this. At the same time, I want to be a great father and husband. And so, we all saw the Danny Woodhead episode. That's why I'm not a great golfer. I try to go when I can. But I don't have a ton of hobbies outside of it. But, you can sleep a little less. You can work a little bit more. But I think a lot of our days are filled with scrolling and watching this and doing things that don't matter. I mean, take some time every day for yourself, emotionally, spiritually. Take some time for yourself every day physically. Take some time for your family every single day. And when the time is intentional that you're spending on your kids, they know it when they are the focus. But I'd start with the phone first and work backwards. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with wanting to provide for your family.
That's awesome. All right, time now to look ahead. We got a football game this week. Back home, Michigan State. You got two teams coming off a bye. How does the bye come into play?
We both played 4 games. We were both 3-0, lost our last game. So we both had that punch in the face that you have to come back from. But you also have the knowledge of, hey, this is what we're doing well. This is what we need to work on. And so I'm assuming they worked on themselves and us the whole 2 weeks. We've worked on us first and then our opponent for the last 2 weeks and trying to fix the things that are hurting us and double down on the things that we're doing well. And so it's always hard playing a team coming off a bye because you never know. They might come out in something completely different. That's happened to me before. But I think the thing about Michigan State is they're an excellent football team with a real identity. They know who they are. Big, physical, run the ball, play great defense, and they have an excellent quarterback. So, we know what we'll have to face and how well we'll have to play to win the game.
Can you overdo it in a bye? Over prepare in a bye?
Yes. you can panic. I think the thing is always to respond, don't react. You have stimuli to I worked for a guy named Steve Adazio, and he would always say, steady in the boat, just don't overreact. A high energy, emotional guy like me, I have a tendency to be like, and it's just like steady in the boat. Let's hurry up and wait. Let's respond. You don't need to change everything. Sometimes you need to say to yourself, hey, what can we do better? Or what are we doing really well that we're not doing a lot of? Let's do more of that. And so that's cool about a bye. And then sometimes you get guys healthy, which can also really help.
So how do the kids usually respond during the bye? You'll be out did you practice today, yesterday?
Yeah, we practiced on the bye week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Right.
And then we gave them Friday, Saturday off. And then we practiced Sunday. They always have Monday off. And then, we get into our game week Tuesday. So, we've had a lot of really good work. And what we try to do is we just put the ball down and play. Like, hey, let's go good on good. Let's work on getting off blocks and making blocks, getting open, covering, rushing, protecting. Let's just work on all these fundamental things. And the best way to get better is to go against good competition. So we went good on good for that part. And then you get to Sunday or Thursday a little bit and Sunday. And, hey, let's start working on next week's game plan. But I think the biggest thing you see in college football is if you want to win, you have to play well. And if you want to play well, you have to focus on yourself and what are we doing well. So we tried to make ourselves better.
Pumped up?
Oh, I tell you what, bye week is miserable to begin with. And then coming off of a disappointing game, it's even more miserable. I can't wait to get back out there. We're at home, amazing fans, great student section. And, Michigan State's an iconic football program, and one of those programs you grew up watching on TV. So it'll be a fun atmosphere. I think it's 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that, our time. So it'll be right in the middle of the day. It'll be a beautiful day here in Lincoln, and this is why we breathe for moments like this.
Let's go! Pumpkins are away. The pumpkins are out. This is football time, man.
Just give me a hot chocolate and some cider. I'm ready to go. Well, that's it. Another episode in the can. Please remember to like, share, or subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And please follow @House Rhules on socials. Until next time.